Welcome everyone to the 2015 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series mid-season review. So today I'm doing something a little different, and I hope that down the road I can continue to do stuff like this because I already do race reviews, but I kind of want to recap like a time period of my favorite sport, NASCAR, and I think that, like I said, I hope I can continue to do this. And chances are, when this season is over, I'll probably do like a review of like the entire season, but this time it is the mid-season, and I think what I might do also differently in these videos compared to my race reviews is kind of give a little bit of like a report card for like drivers and teams, etc. I don't think it's going to be a perfect one. Chances are, I think that there are going to be a couple of things that I forget and um, and stuff like that along the lines. But anyway, I think the first thing I'm going to do is that in case in case you haven't watched or have forgotten, here here uh, here is the list of all the races and their winners. So the season started off with the Sprint Unlimited. Martin Truex Jr. led the most laps, but Matt Kenseth ended up taking the checkered flag. As far as I can remember, it was a pretty wild race. I think that the race, to me, there wasn't really exactly a moment where you kind of just like sit back, relax on the couch. No, I think it was pretty intense, and the race kind of after the race was over, there was a certain get together between Joey Logano and Kevin Harvick that kind of continued the consecutive weeks of tempers after late last season. And then Budweiser Duel, Dale Earnhardt Jr. wins the race. And then Budweiser Duel number 2, Jimmy Johnson wins that race. And anyway, the Daytona 500, Jeff Gordon wins the pole. Jimmy Johnson starts alongside of him. And to me, I think especially towards the end of the race, it was probably one of in my opinion, one of the best Daytona 500s that I've seen in recent years. And by the time it was over, a caution on the last lap officially ends the race, and Joey Logano happens to be the leader. Joey Logano captures his first career Daytona 500, and I think this is Penske's first Daytona 500 win since Ryan Newman won the 50th Daytona 500 back in 2008. And Logano, he picked up right where he was a season ago, where last season I felt like that he was just super dominant. But one streak that did end next week in the Atlanta race, which I felt like also had some pretty intense and wild moments that you don't commonly see at Atlanta. Jimmy Johnson won the race after a dismal 2014 season, in my opinion. Like, it wasn't like a horrible season, but it just wasn't what I think many NASCAR fans expect out of Jimmy Johnson, which is the domination, win a bunch of races every single season. It wasn't really like that last season. Anyway, what made this one, I think, a little different is how Jimmy Johnson, along with I think it was like Jimmy Johnson and like 12 other teams, couldn't go out to make a lap in qualifying because of a inspection fiasco. And I think that this implemented some changes of where qualifying inspection now happens a lot more earlier, and now there is more of a break. And this race, I think, also showed the continued dominance of Kevin Harvick, which would eventually lead us into the next two races, which were both won by Kevin Harvick. And what also makes this season a little different is how we had this thing that was called the West Coast Swing, which is basically races 3 through 5 all on the West Coast: Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Fontana. Harvick almost did the West Coast sweep, leading a bunch of laps in all 3 races, and came close. It was a first, and a second. And to me, I think that performance early in the season from our defending champion, I think, really shows that Harvick is really coming out looking to do what he did a season ago, and it looks like that he might actually perform. He might actually perform a lot more better by time. If you like, I think if he wins the championship this season, I think that it's going to be a little bit more impressive when it comes to the statistics. Because when you think about it, in the first half of last season, Kevin Harvick, he was very good, but to me, he kept on. It was either bad luck or just a bad pit crew and a bunch of other issues. I think that kind of screwed Harvick out of maybe a couple of wins. And to me, this time they're having very few issues. And to me, what Kevin Harvick has done in the first half of the season is what he would have done, I think, in the first half of last season if he did not have all of those issues. So overall, our defending champion is looking very strong, and he's actually our points leader. I think he's been our points leader for the majority of the season. And anyway, last race on the West Coast Swing, Clip Speedway. Kurt Busch gets the pole, leads the most laps, dominates the race, but then a couple of late race cautions causes some drivers to take pit strategy. Brad Keselowski restarts the race in 16th position, and this was the second to last restart. And the thing is, he had fresh tires, and he was just going, made a last lap pass on Kurt Busch. Brad Keselowski scores his first win of the season, and now on to Martinsville. So, pole, Joey Logano. The driver that led the most laps, Kevin Harvick, and the winner was Denny Hamlin, but he had a whole lot of hard-charging Brad Keselowski. And this race, I think it was the 8 consecutive streak of top 2 finishes, first or second, came to an end in Martinsville with an 8th place finish. In this race, I think it was actually, for me personally, even though that on paper it was a good race, for my personal taste, the race was just kind of a little flat in my opinion. But to me, I guess looking back on it, I guess I'm a little bit more happier than I was back in April or late March. And Denny Hamlin. So this also marked as Denny Hamlin's first career win on non-recircle plate since dating back to Homestead in 2013. And to me, especially in the early part of the season, I think this would be like the height of Toyota this week, and then Bristol 2 weeks later. But before we get to Bristol, we have to talk about Texas. The Duck Commander 500, Kurt Busch on the pole. Jimmy Johnson leads the most laps, but in the last 54 laps, pit strategy really jumped up the field, and it was really hard for the most dominant drivers of the day, like Harvick and Johnson, to get back up to the front. So it looked like that Johnson was not going to be able to win that race. But the thing is, I think more strategy was made. Another caution came out. Johnson, McMurray was the leader. McMurray was trying to hold up Harvick, and here comes Jimmy Johnson on the inside, passes both of them. Johnson gets the lead, and then Johnson has to hold up a hard-charging Kevin Harvick. And I think what helped him the most was the clean air, but also Harvick got up into the wall, and then Harvick had to deal with Dale Hunt Jr. Jimmy Johnson goes on to win Texas, and that marks Jimmy Johnson's fourth career win at Texas, first in the spring because his 3 previous wins have been in the fall. 07, is it? Wait a second. I gotta think with this. Actually, no. It is Jimmy Johnson's 5th career Texas win because he won the 07 fall race, the 2012 fall race, 2013 fall race, and 2014 fall race. Anyway, sorry, my bad. Anyway, Bristol. So Bristol, this was to me the first weekend where I was really dreading in preparation for the race because of the rain. Just like last season, rain. And the thing is, what's kind of once again unfortunate was that I think one of the reasons why they moved the Bristol race from March to April was because of the weather. They wanted to avoid cooler temperatures and maybe rain, but unfortunately they couldn't avoid the rain this time. And also, this race also marked as, in some ways, Eric Jones' first career start, filling in for Denny Hamlin, who completed the first 17 laps, and then we had a red flag that lasted for almost 4 hours. And in the meantime, Denny Hamlin was having some neck issues or something like that, and so they called Eric Jones, and so Eric Jones drove the number 11, and for the most part, he did a pretty good job staying out of trouble, having one of the cleanest cars, and finished 26. In that race, there was also a bunch of stories such as this was kind of like the first week. Like entering this weekend, there were 3 drivers that scored top 10s in all 7 races. Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, and Martin Truex Jr. And the thing is, after this race, all 3 drivers, that streak would come to an end with very poor finishes. And to me, this opened the door for a new winner, and the new winner was Matt Kenseth. And also, this race, I think, also kind of started off a little bit of a story where the rain was coming, and it was less than 5 laps to go. And the thing is, we first have all the drivers coming down pit road, and to me, instead of just ending the race right there, NASCAR tries very hard to drive the racetrack. And even though it was just 2 laps, they still got in those 2 laps. Race number 9, once again, another race affected by rain, but this time the rain had to postpone the race to the daytime. So this was the first daytime Richmond race since the fall of 2008. Joe Logano on the pole. Kurt Busch leads most of the laps, and Kurt Busch finally gets that win. And that was his first career win since Martinsville in the spring of 2014. But to me, I think what made this one extra sweet was how he was suspended for the first 3 races, came back so hard charging, and came close a couple of times, and finally got that win. Anyway, race number 10, Geico 500 at Talladega. Jeff Gordon on the pole. Dale Earnhardt Jr. leads the most laps, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. goes on to win the race. And this race kind of had sort of an, I guess you could say, an unpopular ending with it mostly being a single file train and no one wanting to make a move until it was very late. I think what many fans tune into super speedways, they wanted to see pack racing. They don't want to see a single file train all riding around on the high side or the bottom side. Anyway, race number 11, Joey Logano on the pole for the SpongeBob SquarePants 400 at Kansas. And once again, rain got in the way, but this time it didn't postpone it. It actually delayed the race. I think, like, the race started, and then by around like lap 80 or 90 something, rain came, and then it delayed the race for I think about 2+ hours. And the Martin Truex Jr. This was really, I would say, the first time this season that we saw a really, really good run out of Martin Truex Jr. But to me, it came up short due to unfortunate pit strategy. Jimmy Johnson stays out, and Jimmy Johnson also almost wrecked early in the race. Jimmy Johnson wins, holding off Kevin Harvick once again. All-star race, and to me, I felt like this all-star race, while it was, in my opinion, pretty uneventful, and other stuff along the lines, it did kind of inspire for changes that I'll get into in a moment. Denny Hamlin got the pole, and to me, the lead it was kind of like the Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski show for the most part, as far as I can remember. And then Brad Keselowski got caught speeding on the just before the final segment took place, which gave the lead to Denny Hamlin, and then Denny Hamlin held off a hard charging Harvick, who I think Harvick maybe had the better car, but to me, the rules package that was announced last September, I think, really benefits the driver leading, regardless of how good their car is. So to me, Denny Hamlin went on to win. Denny Hamlin's first win in the All-Star race, and it's also, and you can say the same thing for Joe Gibbs and Toyota. Next week at Charlotte, Coca-Cola 600, the longest race of the year. Matt Kenseth gets the pole. Once again, Martin Truex Jr. leads the most laps, but to me, the race would come down to fuel mileage and mixed strategies. Carl Edwards was able to save enough fuel, and Carl Edwards gets his first career win with his new team, Joe Gibbs Racing, after being with Roush Family Racing for the past 10 years. And also, I kind of skipped a little bit. The All-Star race marked Kyle Busch's return after an Xfinity crash at Daytona, where he suffered, I think, a broken ankle and a broken foot. A broken foot and a broken leg. Sorry. And Kyle Busch, it didn't seem like things were going to slow down for Kyle Busch, unlike Tony Stewart or Denny Hamlin when they got their injuries in 2013, and it sort of kind of caused poor finishes for the rest of that year and 2014. But it didn't seem like Kyle Busch was going to go down that path. It looked like that. I think many people were shocked that Kyle Busch was returning so soon. I think some people thought that Kyle Busch would be out for the rest of the season, or that he'd be out for more months than just 3 months. Anyway, 2013, race 13, FedEx 400, Denny Hamlin is on the pole. Martin Truex Jr. once again leads the most laps, but then towards the end of the race, there was a string of late race cautions. and the two leaders were Jimmy Johnson and Kevin Harvick. Jimmy Johnson grabs the lead on a restart. Then we have another caution, and then a caution after that. Johnson's still able to hold, and then Jimmy Johnson's tires were 50 laps older than Casey Kane, Mark Truex Jr., and the rest of the field, but Johnson was still able to hold off. Johnson scores his 4th win of the season and 10th win at Dover, becoming the first ever 10-time winner, and joins a list of, I think it was David Pearson, Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt Sr., and I think one other driver as 10 wins at least one racetrack. Race number 14, Kurt Busch on the pole. Martin Truex Jr. leads the most laps, and this time he was finally able to win. I think, to me, Martin Truex Jr.'s win, I think, was probably one of the most popular wins we've had in a long time, and I would say probably most popular win of the season. And to me, overall, his improvement from last season, where around this point last season, he was like 23rd in points, and for the entire season overall, not just the first half, but the entire season overall, I think he only led one lap and one top 5 finish. And really, his big highlight was just starting on the outside front row in the Daytona 500, which he wasn't actually able to do that because of a crash in the Budweiser Duel last season. And so yeah, and this race was also interesting because it sparked tensions between Jeff Gordon and crew chief Alan Gustafson, who, in case you did not know, forgot, Jeff Gordon announced back in January this year that this season would be his final full-time season, and then I think just before the Coca-Cola 600 or the All-Star race, it was announced that Jeff Gordon would replace Larry McReynolds in the Fox Sports booth. Sorry. And to me, overall, Jeff Gordon's season overall, in my opinion, he hasn't been as dominant or as strong as he was a season ago, where at this point last season he was the points leader and won 4 races and came super close to winning the championship. Almost made the final round. And I actually thought that Jeff Gordon was actually going to get his 5th career championship last season. But anyway, race 15, Casey Kane grabs the pole, and overall, rain was just a huge issue. There were so many rain delays, and the race was shortened after 139 laps. Kyle Larson tried to take a huge gamble to get his first career win because him and his team knew that the rain was coming. They stayed out, hoping that the rain would come, but they had to come down pit road. And if the rain had come a few laps later, we would have been talking about already a first-time winner being out Kyle Larson, but it just didn't came to be. Kurt Busch goes on to win our race. Race number 16, Toyota Save Mart 350. AJ Allmendinger on the pole. Jimmy Johnson leads the most laps, and Kyle Busch gets his first win since his injuries and his first win since the 2014 Auto Club 500. And back when, and a day after Kyle Busch announced that he would be back, NASCAR said, okay, we're going to let Kyle Busch, we're going to make Kyle Busch still chase eligible despite missing 11 races if he wins the race and makes the top 30 in points. And before this, Kyle Busch had his ups and downs with a good finish in the Coca-Cola 600, but other than that, I think it was like a 40th place finish at Dover and like a 43rd place finish at Michigan that left some people to think like, oh no, he's not going to make the chase. He is totally done. He should focus on the rest of his season in preparation for 2016. But then all of a sudden, those opinions would quickly change. But anyway, race number 17, Coke 0400 on a Sunday night because NBC wanted to avoid a Macy's firework special, but also wanted to see if they could get a better ratings for it being on a Sunday night. But that didn't exactly seem to work out because A, people had work that next day, and B, rain once again. I think that it was almost like a 3-hour rain delay, or maybe longer than that. Once the race finally got going, it was just crazy, wild, insane, and in this race, Dale Jr. got the pole, he led the most laps, and won the race. But to me, when I and many other fans look back on this race, I think many of us are going to be talking about the crazy last lap wreck coming to the checkered flag. Denny Hamlin battling Jimmy Johnson for second place gets turned, and then goes right up in front of the field. Austin Dillon hits the number 11 of Denny Hamlin, gets airborne, gets carried over by a couple of cars, and then goes into the catch fence. Thankfully, on the opposite side of the hood, because to me, if the hood hit the catch fence, then the things could have gone really, things could have been worse. But to me, his car came to a dead stop. There really was not much left of the car. Like the entire car, like the entire front end, including the engine, was in the grass several yards from the car. The back end was gone. And even though Austin Dillon walked out alive, this race really brought a really high awareness to like the safety. And to me, it was also a good testament to see how far safety has come in NASCAR. And to me, I think that's the thing that we should remember, is how far safety would have come. Because to me, if that accident had happened even like 10, 20 years ago, we could be looking at a totally different situation with both the driver and the fans. A couple fans did get injured, but to me, it was a lot less than previous incidents, such as Kyle Larson's wreck in the Xfinity Series 2 years ago in February at Daytona. And then race 18, Quaker State 400. And this race served as a sort of an important race because of a new rules package, which and this package was called the lower downforce, was often called the lower downforce package. And and even though that there was a testing session on Wednesday that got canceled, and then they tried to get it in on Thursday, but it got canceled. And do you want to know why? Because of rain. Rain once again got in the way. And once the race did start, though, I think that race was one of the best races of the season, if not the best. And I think definitely one of the best mile-and-a-half races that we've seen over time. I remember making a Facebook comment saying, like, maybe this package will bring an end to the whole mile-and-a-halves are boring, you know. But to me, I felt like that. Many people who thought it was going to be a boring race or whatever, it really was one of the best races we've seen all season. And to me, and to me, if you don't believe me, we'll listen to this. A record amount of lead changes, more than double of the amount of green flag passes throughout the whole entire pack, not just the leader, but throughout the whole entire pack. And also there was a record amount of cautions, and there was just simply a lot more daring moves, a lot of at one point Joey Logano and Kyle Busch traded the lead a couple of times. And to me, that's something that I have not seen in quite some time, as far as my memory serves. And so yeah, I felt like that. I feel like that was a good note for NASCAR to leave on, and I think NASCAR will continue to go in this direction. And anyway, 5 Hour Energy 301. Carl Edwards wins the pole. Brett Keselowski dominates the race, and Kyle Busch. And Kyle Busch. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say Kyle Busch did win at Kentucky, but then Kyle Busch came back once again for the second week in a row. Kyle Busch wins at New Hampshire after having to be pretty aggressive to get himself back on the lead lap, and then the caution came out, and that allowed him to restart as the leader. Kyle Busch wins once again, and so after being in a hospital bed a few months ago, Kyle Busch is back and stronger than ever in terms of Kyle Busch's performances in the past few years. Now he has the second most amount of wins behind Jimmy Johnson, and actually has more wins than the points leader, Kevin Harvick. So overall, I would say that it's been a pretty remarkable year in terms of like headlines. And I guess now I can now get into what I've liked and disliked. What I've liked the most is I definitely like the huge safety improvements that have been going on, such as many tracks installing safer barriers or tire barriers, and just overall the awareness. A lot of this did come after Kyle Busch's Xfinity wreck, and to me, it's just nice to hear this. So to me, I think that possibly in the next few years, we'll be seeing safer barriers at every wall at every single racetrack, with the exception of racetracks that I don't exactly need, like Eldora for the Truck Series. Also, what I also like is how NASCAR said, so NASCAR's like, we want to give our fans a good show, and currently this 2015 rules package isn't exactly doing that. We're going to change the rules package for at least a couple of races. One of those being Kentucky, and then there are 3 more. The Brickyard, which is this weekend, Michigan in less than a month, and the Southern 500 on Labor Day. They're I feel like this year overall is kind of like NASCAR's experimenting year, and to me, after the results of these 4 scheduled races, and maybe they'll make changes to the chase depending on how these next few races go. But to me, I think at this rate, I think that especially after the success at Kentucky, I think that we'll definitely once again see another rules package change for 2016. And I think that what I see here is that I see track specific aero packages and just rules packages, and also like just overall, I just think NASCAR just going. I think NASCAR really is probably going in a really good direction in terms of it wanting to improve in terms of it wanting to improve the racing. And I think NASCAR, now that it has a little notebook, I think that it can expand upon that. And to me, it makes me pretty excited for 2016 and see what it has to offer. I also mentioned the West Coast swing, but to me, it was part of a few changes made to the schedule. And I think to me, the West Coast swing, I think it was a very cool thing. And I hope that for years to come we see that. And also, tradition returns. Darlington 500, not Darlington. The Southern 500, which used to be on Labor Day from I think 1950 to 2003, returns to its original Labor Day weekend, and that'll be in I think 2 months or a little less than 2 months. NBC's return. Now, NBC is currently not flawless, but to me, I think that some of the criticisms that NBC's getting right now, I think that. I remember reading stories about how NBC, when it started doing covering the second half of the season back in 2001 to 2006, and its first 2 years, it got a lot of criticism, but then they made changes, and then I think by the end of it, many people did not want to see NBC go. So to me, I think that as time goes on, I think that NBC will be more liked, and I think that they will make improvements. But so far, I think that their coverage has actually been better in some ways compared to the Fox coverage, and I also like Fox as well. And also, I mentioned about how NASCAR is going in the right direction. And I think what also backs that up is attendance is up at some racetracks after just years of it being down at every single racetrack, I believe. Some tracks like Talladega, Martinsville, and I think a few other tracks. And also on basic cable networks such as Fox 10, right, the average ratings have also been up. And what have I not liked about the season so far? Well, the 2015 rules package that was announced back in the fall, while this package did increase passing overall compared to last year's rules package, lead changes have been down at most of the racetracks. And to me, many of us NASCAR fans do not watch to see what's going on between like most of us. I think most of us NASCAR fans don't tune in to watch a battle for like 27th position. No, we want to see a battle for the lead, and when lead changes are down, it's just not that great of an experience. And so to me, I think that while it is great that passing is up overall, I think that we want to see lead changes up as well. And currently with this package, it was just kind of like it was sort of like a good and bad thing, depending on how you want to look at it. Also, what I haven't liked about the first half of the season is how there is yet to be about how there is kind of a lack of like a big surprise winner or just overall a first-time winner. Such as, for example, when I talk about big surprises, I'm a good example for that is like Regan Smith winning the 2011 Southern 500, or David Regan driving for Front Row Motorsports gets help from his teammate David Gilliland and wins the 2013 Talladega Spring Race. I think to me that is what I mean by a big surprise. On paper, when you look at the list of our winners, like let's just say you've not watched this season at all, have not seen a single second of race coverage, and just look at the winners. The one that might shock you is Martin Truex Jr. I think the one that might shock you the most is Martin Truex Jr. just because Martin Truex Jr. his career overall, it's not. He's not like a dominant driver. He's kind of like good here and just sort of like average there, but he's not been as he's not like a dominant driver throughout most of his career. And so to me, on paper, his win I think it definitely comes out as a surprise. But to me, if you take into account that he's been so down overall this season, it's not as much of a surprise. And so to me, I'm just kind of wondering, like, when are we going to have that surprise winner? And the thing is, even like more recent examples are Eric Almirola winning the Coke 0400, or AJ Allmendinger winning the Watkins Glen race, and then punching their tickets into the chase because. And the thing is, they were not going to make it into the chase if they had not won those races. I think that's something that I've kind of been missing so far this season, and I hope that maybe happens in the second half with the remaining regular season races. But we'll just have to see. I think that especially with the new high drag packages at Indianapolis and Michigan, which I think could create some pretty drastic changes, it could maybe give us that wild card winner. And to me, if it's not going to be a driver driving for the championship, I hope that maybe especially if like the high drag package gives us like pack like racing, maybe it'll be a great, maybe you can see someone like Ryan Blaney or Chase Elliott get their first career Spectrum Series win. I would absolutely love to see that happen. I think it would definitely be one hell of a story. Anything else I haven't liked? Well, I mentioned in the rain overall. Like I don't think that the rain this season in the first half was as bad as the first half of last season. But overall, it's really just not that good. Is the Spectrum Series just getting unlucky? Is it climate change? Is it just bad scheduling? I would kind of like to know, and maybe especially with like Kentucky and sweepers, A, Kentucky might get repaid, and B, NASCAR might want to schedule events like Kentucky to maybe less rainy days. And also, and I guess now my final thing I might do is touch on some other big stories. So I mentioned I talked a little bit about Martin Truex Jr., but to me, I think that when you look at like big surprises like Martin Truex Jr. in French Road Racing, I already mentioned my thoughts about Martin Truex Jr., but I think especially for French Road Racing, a team that has spent most of their career just not that great. In fact, they were a star and park team in their first couple years. They got that win with freaking Swift in the 2011 Southern 500, and then they really came alive with Kurt Busch in an effort to sort of restore Kurt Busch's career and to get Kurt Busch back on the big teams. But overall, this season they've been really impressive. And recently there has been talk about maybe like a second team by 2017 and maybe going to Toyota, because they believe that they're not getting the same support from Chevy. So I'm interested to see where in the second half and then in the future how where their success will take them. And I mentioned Kyle Busch, but to me, even if you're not a Kyle Busch fan and actually really hate Kyle Busch, I think that you can't I don't think that you can like. I think that you really have to. I think that you really have to look at it and say that it really is impressive to see that Kyle Busch can suffer some pretty serious injuries and to be out for a few months and then come back just like roaring. I think that you can't be like. I think that you can't help but be just a little bit impressed, even like I said, even if you're a Kyle Busch hater. And so to me, that's one thing, and to me that's probably one of the biggest surprises. But hopefully, as the season goes on, I would like to see overall like the media sort of like shorten the amount of like focus time on Kyle Busch and kind of talk about the other drivers that are also fighting to get into this championship hunt. And Jeff Gordon's final full-time season, I mentioned a little bit about that, and I also mentioned about how this year hasn't been as dominant as last season, but he's done pretty solid enough. And Chase Elliott will be in the 24 in the 24 car with Napa as the sponsor, and he'll be in that car with that sponsor for at least the next 3 years, 2016 through 2018. I think that Chase Elliott is probably their best choice. Now, obviously, because Chase Elliott is an Xfinity Series champion, and and racing for our team, and especially me in a car number for Jeff Gordon, I think expectations for many fans, Gordon fans or not, I think they're going to be pretty high. And unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to suffer through Chase Elliott sucks. Like I'll probably have to suffer looking at those kind of comments, unfortunately. But we'll just see how well Chase Elliott really does do. He's done pretty solid. I think that he's done, to me, the best that he can currently right now, driving part-time for Rick Hendrick, being Hendrick's fifth car. Indianapolis, like this weekend, is going to be his 4th out of 5 career starts, or maybe it's 6. I can't exactly remember, but anyway, Jeff Gordon overall. What I think what's kind of interesting was that earlier today I was rewatching a special that the former Speed Channel put together called the 1992 Hooters 500, and that race overall, other than the tight championship bout where the championship went on to be hoisted by Alan Kawicki, Richard Petty's last start, Jeff Gordon's first start, the end of a legend, and the start of what would make a NASCAR legend. And I think that, even if you're not a Jeff Gordon fan, you have to really, I think that you have to, and I think that you should definitely congratulate on what Jeff Gordon has been able to accomplish. 92 career wins, 4 championships, and I think that a quarter of his top 5s or top 10s. I think that out of all of his starts, which he has not missed a race since his first career start, and I think that later in the season he will actually break Ricky Rudd's record as the most consecutive starts, I believe, unless something drastic happens, which I don't think will happen. But what Jeff Gordon really has done is impressive, and not many have done it or are going to do it. So to me, for Jeff Gordon to lead, the sport will be different, and I think that. Just like what we saw 23 years ago, when drivers like Richard Petty left the sport or were gone, NASCAR was really a different sport, and I think that with a legend like Jeff Gordon gone, I think that the sport really will be a lot more different. Whether fans are ready to embrace that change or not. So overall, I think that whether Jeff Gordon wins a race or not, or wins the championship, I don't think that this season should define Jeff Gordon overall. Anyway, also now I guess it's time to get into the struggles. And number 1 on the list is the struggles of Roush Film Racing as a whole. All 3 drivers not inside the top 16 points. I think that there's only 1 or 3 top 5s out of the entire organization. Greg Biffle almost won the Coca-Cola 600 using the same strategy as Carl Edwards, but overall Biffle has not been as good. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in his 3rd year for that team really hasn't been good. And along with Trevor Bayne, I think, to me, it feels like those 2 drivers are either 20th place finishes or drivers that end up behind the wall. It seems like to me. I think that it's a combination of both talent and equipment. I think that Bayne overall, to me, Trevor Bayne is kind of like this decade's Derek Cope. Wins that one famous race, the Daytona 500, but really, to me, when I look at Derek Cope's career, I don't see too many other surprise wins or just a win in general. I think Derek Cope only won a few races after that. And to me, I see that Trevor Bayne as well. And I think that I think when I look at Bayne and Stenhouse, I'm more worried about Bayne, just because to me, when I think about it, Jeremy Mayfield in 2006, driving for Everham Motorsports, a team that he had been on for I think ever since 2002. he performed so badly in 2006 that he actually um, he he got I think he got like fired because he was so low in points. And while Trevor Bayne is not that low, he's inside the top 30 points. But to me, I worry about that with Bayne. I think that Bayne, to me, in my opinion, I think should had probably stayed in the Xfinity Series, or maybe if Roush Fenway's Truck Series team was still alive, he could go there and probably really be a big success to win the championship in that series. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I liked him. I liked him a lot when he won the championship in 2011 and 2012 back-to-back championships. And while I still like him to this day, he's just not. I don't think that I don't think that it's not that he's ready, but to me, he's just not like a talented enough cup driver. And like I said, it probably it probably also has to do with the equipment, like Crash Family Racing. When I think about a season ago, obviously the chase, it wasn't 16 drivers, it was 10 drivers. But to me, Crash Family Racing 10 years ago, 2005, you had I think it was 5 drivers: Mark Martin, Greg Biffle, Matt Kenseth, uh, Mark Martin, Greg Biffle, Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards. I want to say that there was like a fifth driver. Was there a fifth driver? I cannot remember. I cannot remember if there was a fifth driver. Um, I'm sorry. I'm actually going to look this up. Now I remember. Kurt Busch was also the team. Yeah. So Rush Fenway 10 years ago had 5 drivers. Now it's down to 3. But to me, all 5 drivers were, I think, all contenders for that championship that season. And all five of them made the chase. Now 10 years later, Rush Valley Racing now has 3 drivers. The only driver that has stayed with the team since then is Greg Biffle, and none of these drivers are in the chase. And to me, what kind of makes it a little more sad and maybe a little more pathetic is the chase is on 10 drivers. It's 16 drivers. So to me, that's more spots and technically an easier chance. So overall, I think that whether it happens this year or next year, I think that in order for that team to really be a success, a success like it was in the Cup Series decades ago, I think that there really is going to have to be some big changes. Anyway, moving on to Tony Stewart. He's been a pretty big topic when it comes to struggling drivers or teams in general. Tony Stewart currently having his worst career season, no top 5s, 26 in points. And really, like it feels like every time I watch Tony Stewart on television, it looks like that there's always that point in the race where he ends up getting lapped. Like to me, it just seems like the speed is not there, and to me, it's not a team problem because Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch have been really good, and the thing is, Danica Patrick, who when you look at her points, it's not a huge improvement, but to me, Danica Patrick has actually, but on most occasions, Danica Patrick has actually been finishing better than her boss. So to me, I don't know whether Tony Stewart is like done or not, but to me, he could possibly be done. Like for example, when I think about like some of NASCAR's greats, I think drivers like Richard Petty went the past several seasons without winning a race, but continued to race. Is the same thing happening for Tony Stewart? I think that for me, I think that the days of Tony Stewart and just being someone to watch out for every single week, I think those days are done. If Tony Stewart ever gets back to being competitive again, it's going to be more of like an on and off type thing. Like I think like Tony Stewart can do better. I think Tony Stewart can do better than like 25th place every single week. But to me, I think that whether it's a problem with himself, his crew chief, or his team, something needs to change. Another struggling driver, Kyle Larson. I think that he really is having a sophomore slump, especially in recent weeks, like a poor finish at Daytona, and then another poor finish at like all poor finishes at Kentucky, Daytona, and New Hampshire. He's now outside the top 20 points, and he did miss one race because he fainted the day before the Martinsville race, and because he never got to start the race. He I think that he lost a full race. He lost a full race worth of points, if that made any sense. Like he lost a full points race, 43 points. And to me, even if he didn't miss those points, he would still be outside the chase for top 16. A season ago, I think Larson was around like 10th place in points. Now he's 21st. Average finish has been down several positions. Overall, I think that, like, to me, it's not a team problem because Jamie McMurray has actually shown a lot of speed this season. It looks like that McMurray might actually make his first career chase more than a full race ahead of 17th place in points. So McMurray looks good, whether he wins the race or not. So to me, I think it's more of like a driver team problem. And to me, like, here's the thing though, like, I particularly am not that much of a fan of Larson. For me personally, when it was announced that Larson would go to the Cup Series and replace Juan Pablo Montoya in the summer of 2013, I didn't really know how to feel about that, just because I felt like that it almost felt like Larson was just like it was almost as if like, here you go, because to me, like, I think that, like, to me, like, well, okay, I think I'll say it again, when it was first announced that Larson would be racing full time in Cup Series in 2014, and at that point in the season, he had only completed like 20 Xfinity races. At first, I really thought that it was just like stuff was just being like handed to him, and the reason why I say that is just because in his first year in the Xfinity Series, after that season was done, he finished 8th in points. And to me, while some might say, well, Chase Elliott, this is being given to him. He's not exactly earned it. I think, to me, though, the difference is that in his first full year in Cup, Chase Elliott was able to be dominant and actually beat the Cup regulars at a couple of races, such as Texas and Darlington. And so to me, Chase Elliott, because of his performance because of his Xfinity performance last season, where he would go on to win the championship, and even this season, I know like Chase Elliott is someone going through a sophomore slump, but he's second in points, has actually been improving the past couple weeks, and he might, if he can get better, he might actually challenge Chris Buescher for that championship. So to me, I think that like Chase Elliott has earned the 24. I don't know if Larson has exactly, like, when I first heard it, I don't know if Larson exactly earned his spot in the Cup Series. But last season, I think that he took me, and I think many others, by surprise with how talented he was. There were a couple of races where he was just so close, but so far that hasn't really happened this season. And personally, I think that I think that Larson could maybe be the next Joey Logano, like a driver that is hyped a lot about, like, new talent, rising star. But to me, switching teams might be necessary in order for him to really perform at his absolute best and win races and win the championship. Now, Larson's contract goes up until 2017, and obviously a lot can happen since then. Maybe he'll find a way to get his second half of the season back on track. Maybe he'll be a lot more better in 2016, 2017. But to me, at this point, I'm starting to think that a team change might be necessary. And like I said, look at Joey Logano. So that's what I have to say about that. I think also there have been a couple of surprises, such as or just a couple of team driver and team swaps, such as after Kyle Busch got injured, Matt Crafton made his Cup Series debut, and actually I think he did a nice job for having very little Cup experience. And then Eric Jones actually made his Cup Series debut at Kansas, and he was doing so well before he got caught in a wreck running around fifth place. And also, there's also been a couple of driver changes in Michael Waltrip Racing, which like Roush Family has also been struggling quite a bit. I mean, I mean, to me, I think ever since the spin gate, uh, it's really been a huge struggle for this team. Neither two drivers uh, Brian Vickers and Cliff Bowyer did not make the chase last season, unless I'm mistaken. And it looks like that even though they made a creature change, and Cliff Bowyer is a little bit more better, but it just seems like that something like Roush Family Racing, something big seriously needs to happen. And who knows? Maybe Cliff Bowyer's recent improvement will actually help him get himself into the chase. We'll just have to see. And anyway, I mentioned drivers changes. So back in December last year, Brian Vickers once again had blood clots. Sorry, and so it was announced that he had missed the first 2 races. Michael Waltrip ran at Daytona. The next week, it was Brett Moffitt, who actually finished in impressive 8th place. And then Ryan Vickers was back for Las Vegas and Phoenix. And then once again, just before Auto Club, once again, has to sit out because of blood clots. And so Brett Moffitt continued to be in the 55 car, and Michael Waltrip did race at Talladega. But other than that, Brett Moffitt was in that car. Neither of the two drivers really was like, I don't think they really gave like a memorable performance. And then once Kansas rolled, Dan Reagan, who drove for Joe Gibbs Racing from Atlanta to Talladega, went to the 55 car, and he's been in the car ever since then. I think Reagan has shown some speed, but really has not been able to finish where the speed has matched in like the practice and qualifying sessions. And so to me, that's my thoughts on that. And that's pretty much all I really have to like say. If there's anything that if there's any questions or just any like thoughts on topics I did not address in this video, go ahead to answer in the comment section. But to me, I think that, like, I guess the final thing I will say or I'll ask is like, well, what could we see in the second half of the season? And to me, I mentioned like lack of big surprise winner. I have to think that we're going to see that at some point, whether it's Indy, Michigan, or Watkins Glen. I think those are the two tracks where not two tracks. I think those are the 3 tracks where we could have a big surprise winner. But I don't know. And I think that once the chase starts, I think that it should be similar to last season where I felt like that it was pretty exciting. Drivers were really racing their hearts out, trying to just win. They had to win because if they did not win, they weren't going to make it. And so to me, I think that as to me remarkable as 2015 has been for the most part, I think that the second half of the season should be even better. And anyway, that's pretty much all I really have to say. So I would like to thank everyone for watching this, whether they're watching this live or watching this once this gets published as an online video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and bye.